Three Team First Trade Academy. We've been doing this series of seminars for a while now, and the objective behind it for us was mainly because we realized that ETLS, a type of free trade agreement in West Africa, which was launched about 30 years ago, have not been very successful, largely because of what we discovered in the course of our research, and that was communication issue, information about the program. This was in 1990. And we can see the same trend playing out under AfCFTA because a lot of engagement has been on. The banks who are supposed to be financing these transactions are not even aware of the details. And you're the one that have access to the customers. You're the one that talk to them. You're the one that can advise them and encourage them and probably even finance them for this transaction. And we thought it necessary that it would be a good one to have sessions with different banks discussing the concept of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and understanding how to benefit from it. So this morning, I'll be talking about 8 things before we close. I have a preamble. I'm talking about performance, the potential of the AfCFTA, the processes. If you are familiar with the export process, now we have an amendment, a slight change in the export process, an addition actually to the export process, then the propensities in terms of implication for the economy, then the problems and what we need to do, and as a bank, more importantly, the preparation. So what do we need to begin to do to take advantage of this? What are the profits for the bank, for our customers, and how do we maximize the potential of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement? So let's go through the preamble. AfCFTA is an initiative developed pursuant to Abuja Treaty signed in 1991 by all the African countries, including Nigeria. And one of the objectives is the establishment of a free trade area, among other things, strengthening regional economic communities like ECOWAS, common external tariff and common market, gradual removal of obstacles to free movement of persons, goods, and right of residence and establishment. This is the vision of the Abuja Treaty. And it's in line with the Agenda 2063 when AU or OAU, which is now AU, will become 100 years. So this agreement took us away from the usual preferential agreement, like the GSP program that the developed country will usually do for the developing country, just to ensure that the developing country have a market for their product as their own contribution toward the development of the developing country. Now we have a formal trade agreement to break down the wall of partition and tariff barriers among countries in Africa. 54 African countries have signed, 36 have ratified, so it's a law in 36 African countries. Nigeria did its own in December, which is why even though the program has been launched, Nigeria cannot trade yet. Even though the program has been launched, Nigeria cannot trade yet, simply because we didn't do what we're supposed to do on time in terms of signing. But now we have signed and ratified again. So we're fully ready to go. But we also, as stakeholders and bankers, need to be ready. So formal trade agreement, then custom union. Custom union. Custom union, so what we've done now is to sign an agreement to remove tariff barriers. Custom union create a common external tariff. Tariff barrier means I can ship to Botswana duty-free. I can ship to Egypt duty-free. Up to 90% of the traded HS code products in the world. But the next level is custom union. And the plan is that before the end of this decade, Africa should have implemented the custom union such that we will not just have a free trade area. Anybody that wants to trade with any country in Africa will pay the same duty, irrespective of the country where that good is entering into Africa. Common external tariff. The ultimate goal also is to move on to common market, where we have free mobility of factor of production, labor, and capital in particular. But ultimately is to have economic union, when you have Afro, like Euro, like ECO, Afro, a unified currency on the African continent. A unified currency on the African continent. EU have been able to attain this among many regional trade agreement or free trade agreement of economic integration in the world. EU have been able to attain the economic union. The closest to political union is Commonwealth of Nations of the British colony, former colony. Now, let's unpack this agreement. This agreement has 6 parts. There is trade in goods, trade in services, dispute settlement, investment, intellectual property right, and investment, intellectual property right, and competition policy. And competition policy. These are the various segments of this agreement. Now, the trade in goods and services has been negotiated. Dispute resolution has been negotiated and is part of the initial agreement that was signed. The remaining on investment, intellectual property right, and competition policy on the African continent is being negotiated. That will be the second phase of the program. The agreement seeks to facilitate trade in goods via enhanced cooperation in area of technical barriers to trade and sanitary facility measures, as well as development of a continental value chain. The objective of this agreement is to create jobs, reduce poverty, reduce inequality, create more opportunity, and to support the growth of African businesses by virtue of increased trade among ourselves. By virtue of increased trade among ourselves. There are concerns that people have expressed about the AfCFTA, but those concerns are not well-founded, in my opinion, because the agreement has safeguards. Safeguards to protect fragile economy, to protect sector of the economy that are just growing, to ensure that at the end of the day, we don't sign an agreement that will become a source of our retrogression as a continent. So countries are allowed to liberalize 90% of traded HS code in the world and 7% to be liberalized over a period of 10 years and 3% not to be liberalized because of the nature of that sector to the economy of that country. So 90% non-sensitive list, fully liberalized, 7% sensitive list, negotiated liberalization over a period of 10 years, 3% exclusively not subject to liberalization. Like I said earlier, this agreement has been signed by 54 African countries and 36 have ratified. 36 have ratified. As at time I was getting this particular slide, 34 ratified, but now 36 have ratified. The implication of that is that 36 African countries will be able to enjoy the benefit of AfCFTA because they have ratified. They are now what is called state parties. I do a seminar every Thursday by 5 p.m. And what I basically do at that seminar is to analyze different African markets. We started with Angola, Algeria. We did Congo, DRC last week, and this week we'll be doing Cote d'Ivoire. Just basically providing necessary information on how everyone can assess the market and how you can also educate your customer on this issue. The link to that seminar is already dropped for the one we are holding today by 5 p.m. It's on the Telegram channel. Performance. So how has Nigeria fared? As in, how have we performed? What have we been able to do within this period? How have we been able to go about this trade in general? I'm talking about in Nigeria now. If you look at the screen, you will see the trend of trade in Nigeria, both on the import and on the export side. The trend of trade in Nigeria, both on the import and on the export side. But for COVID, you will notice that we have 62.5 in 2019 in export and about 55 on import. That's about almost $120 billion. $120 almost $120 billion. This $120 billion constitutes about 30% of Nigerian GDP. About 30% of Nigerian GDP, or at least 25% of Nigerian GDP. That basically tells us that the growth we desire as a bank, the growth we desire as a nation, is going to be trade-driven, because the world trade is 80 trillion and about 20 trillion. The world GDP is 80 trillion and about 20 trillion of that 80 trillion is on trade. Is on trade. You will also realize that majority of the traded goods of Nigeria to African continent are manufactured goods. And that's instructive, because that's saying that in your marketing effort, to be able to leverage on AfCFTA to get transaction for your customer and to help your customer grow their businesses while you also grow your organization, manufactured good will be something we have to focus on. That means I need to spend more time with manufacturers to begin to consider trading their product on the African continent, and even informing importers on the need for them to become merchants in the bid to generate foreign exchange, rather than waiting and keep queuing up for FX from CBN. This chart is emphasizing the same thing. You will look at, this is as at last year, look at what we did in agri, look at what we did in minerals, to Asia, to America, to Europe, to Africa. You will notice that it is in manufactured goods that Nigeria is trading more with other African countries. And the reason it's not far-fetched, I told you I do seminar every week, and I try to analyze, do a snapshot of the African economy, analyzing the market, and try to know what are the peculiarities in this market that we need to consider and to constitute the export market entry strategy for an exporter. I know what I discovered. Number one, most African countries have more than 60% of the populace below 25 years. 60%. So Africa have young population and growing population. And I think one of the things driving it is actually because of the poverty on the African continent. There's no work. There's no light. People sleep on time, and we keep making babies. That is creating young population, but that's also increasing poverty. Now, if you look at the GDP of African country again, you will notice that the household component of the consumption component of the GDP is usually more than 60, 70%, in some cases 80%. Household consumption component of the consumption part of the GDP is huge. So most African families are basically living for survival. So products that are needed for human survival are what will thrive on the African continent. Those are the products also that thrive during the COVID. Those are the products that will thrive on the African continent. Why? Because those are the products that are needed for survival. Drugs, pharmaceuticals, personal care products, food item, agri product, value-added manufactured goods, things we need on day-to-day. Things we need on day-to-day. So this will shape our conversation with our customer on how to go about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and the kind of customer we should be marketing actually. Here is the trend of growth of trade in Africa, to ECOWAS, and other African countries. You can see a growth in trend. Look at the reason why AfCFTA is critical and important. Can you imagine that in a world of over $18.7 trillion in trade, Africa is doing 2.6%. Let me put that in perspective. If you go to the EU, with a population of less than 500 million people, EU is contributing 33% of trade in the world, 33%. But what's interesting about EU is that 70% intra-EU trade, 70%. Same for Asia. America is over 50%, North America, intra. But Africa, can you see intra-African trade? About 17%, 18%, less than 20%. That basically is saying that the people enjoying the benefit of African market are Asians, Europeans, and Americans. Africans are not enjoying the benefit of the African population, 1.2 billion people. Because we're not doing a lot of trade among ourselves, the barriers are too much. Now we are breaking down those barriers and walls of partition to allow easy access to other African countries, such that if I have not been profitable in selling on the African continent before, because of duty, now I'm able to sell on the African continent because the duty has been removed, or at least reduced. The duty has been removed, or at least reduced. This is very important. This is very important. This is very important. Now, let's talk about the potential. Let's talk about the potential. What are the opportunities for Nigerian products? Which kind of customer should you be marketing to consider AfCFTA? There's a huge opportunity for manufactured products under AfCFTA because quite a number of items procured by other African countries right now from around the world are already being manufactured in Nigeria, or at least can be produced in Nigeria, like petrol, for example. We search online to confirm what are the products that African import, and found quite a number of them. The fact that African countries already import this item means we will be able to trade this item. Means they might most likely be on the sensitive list, on the non-sensitive list. The challenge we might have had before is competitive pricing because of our infrastructural deficit. But now we have a little palliative on that, courtesy the reduction in tariff. The reduction in tariff orchestrated by the AfCFTA. So manufactured good is a low-hanging fruit. Low-hanging fruit. Look at the product according to African Development Bank with potential, untapped potential, according to aphorism rather, untapped potential. Fruit, beverages, cereals, vegetable. You can see they are mainly food items, not raw materials. The agri that will thrive in Africa are food items. Other metals, vegetable oil and fat, then personal product, apparel, paper product, metal, ferrous metal. These are value-added manufactured goods or secondary products, not the raw state. Sugar and confectionaries, fertilizer, plastic and rubber, fish and shellfish, chemicals, beauty and cosmetics. Can you see the volume of beauty and cosmetics? Motor vehicles, machineries, mineral products. In our own search, we found petrol. These are the products Africa currently imports: cars, wheat, crude oil, medicament, petrol gas, raw sugar, palm oil, rice, corn, insulated wire, sugarcane, non-fillet fish, pesticide, gold, poultry meat, furniture, rubber footwear, malt extract, coal briquette, cement, plastic leaf, scented mixture, soya beans oil, women's suit, iron pie, nitrogenous fertilizer, frozen bovine, drying legumes. You see all these products? Can you see the quantum of import of this product by African country? None of them is less than $1 billion. None of them. But you notice they are mainly value-added manufactured goods. That's very important. They are mainly value-added manufactured goods. That's very important. So that means in trying to get a customer to consider AfCFTA, this is what I need to be looking at. This is what I need to be looking at. I need to be looking at those that are into any form of manufacturing. As a matter of fact, almost any manufactured product, almost any manufactured product in Nigeria have a potential for export in Africa. Have a potential for export. See what AfCFTA will do for us. It will make us reverse this trend. It will make us reverse this trend. Can you see that crude and non-crude like petrol gas constitute 85% of Nigerian export? So that's why 90% of our forex generation is coming from petrol and related products, at least 80%, and about half of the revenue of the government is coming from the same source. But you know what AfCFTA will do? It will make it possible to reverse this trend. Our most potent, viable, and valid channel, most potent, viable, and valid channel for diversification of this economy is growing non-oil exports on the African continent by promoting, supporting, financing, assisting exporters of manufactured value-added products. So what will change? What will change? If you are familiar with the export process, typically you have the planning, the exporter is doing his business plan. Having done his planning, he sources for buyers on the African continent, source for funds, procurement or production, manufacturing. Remember what I said earlier. A manufacturer that is queuing up for FS with CBN complaining and begging for forex needs help, needs advice, needs to be informed that what he is selling, producing in Nigeria can generate FS for him. If I'm a trader, I can be a merchant. Who says that the manufacturer must be exporter? Why can't you work with the importer to buy from the exporter and export to the African continent and be a merchant and sign an agreement to cover a particular region of Africa to sell the product of that company and generate foreign exchange? You know, we do certification programs in trade, and we don't have to queue up for FX. Why? We simply export with the FX, with the Naira paid by our student. And the dollar coming in, we use it to pay for student bill for the exam they are doing with the London Institute of Banking and Finance and the American Institute of Extended Study, different certification program. Same can be done by importers. Importers can export and use the proceeds of their export to fund their import. That will even make them more competitive, because then they will be able to get dollar at a cheaper rate than their competitors. For every cloud, there's silver lining. Even though there's a challenge for us, I think some importers, you know, in 2016, during the financial crisis, the recession we had because of the oil price, there's a particular company, it's a PLC into food production. They realized that their business is threatened because of depending on CBN. They sent 7 of their staff for our export business management and finance program. And today, they don't just export their own product, they export even other commodities like cashew, cocoa to generate forex. That's how important this issue is. To generate forex. To generate forex. That's how important it is. What I'm saying in essence is this. An importer is a potential exporter and should not be complaining about forex, because he can actually generate that forex by simply exporting or partnering with exporters. The three areas I've highlighted is what we have changes under AfCFTA. So how will a manufacturer benefit from AfCFTA? That manufacturer must first of all register his business under AfCFTA. The platform is being developed already. Hopefully, maybe before the end of next month, it should be out. It should be ready. Register. It needs to be a Nigerian registered company with CAC, export license, tax clearance. Having done that, that same business now will register its product. Not all product will be eligible for export under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Not all product will be eligible for export. Let me give you an example. You see this product? I don't know if it's clear. The light. Okay, I think it's better now. This product is PAP. Now, I export this product to the UK, and I'm not the manufacturer. This product has its raw material fully from Nigeria. This product have an advantage under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. It will be deemed to be an originating product because the raw material are sourced from Nigeria. 60% is required under AfCFTA. The 60% is required under AfCFTA. Basically saying that a business that will enjoy the benefit of AfCFTA must have at least 60%, a whopping 60% of the raw material sourced from African continent or from Nigeria. That already knock off some of our customers who source their raw material from outside Africa. They will need to rework their supply chain. They will need to rework their supply chain. Someone said, can you see the product? You can't see the product. I thought you saw it. I don't know if you can see it now. It's not showing very well. I don't know what angle I should put it. Can you see the product now? At least a little bit. That's PAP. Okay, yes, I can drop the picture for you actually. I can drop the picture for you. So, but I'm basically saying that the opportunity we have under AfCFTA is huge, and that the bank can reasonably take advantage of it. Now, that product is an agro-processed product, it's PAP, OGI, PAP. That product must have a substantial raw material on the African continent. Remember, for me to be able to access AfCFTA, I need to register my product. So when I register that product, they will come and visit my factory. There's a National Action Committee. They will check and confirm that this product indeed is eligible. Either because of processing, in which there is a change in the tariff heading from a particular classification like chemical, concentrate, orange concentrate, to beverages, juice, orange juice. The tariff heading are two different. That means the level of processing done on what was brought into Africa changed the tariff heading. That will make such product also eligible under the AfCFTA. When I register my product, then I will apply for certificate of origin. I register my product once, but my certificate of origin, I will apply for every shipment because we have the detail of the buyer and the seller, the item I'm shipping, the quantity, the price, and the amount. So for every product that will be shipped under AfCFTA, it must have been registered by a registered company under AfCFTA, and there will be a certificate. Can you see the processing of pre-export documentation in the new TRMS of CBN? Certificate of origin is required. as a pre-export documentation, even though it's not enforced yet. Then warehousing, container booking, container loading, inspection, stuffing and sealing of the container, haulage to the port, export clearance with custom, then post-export documentation. Post-export documentation. The post-export documentation means the document that the exporter is sending to FSDH, that document must contain certificate of origin. FSDH sends it to the importer's bank sends it to the importer, and the account of the exporter is credited. So not all manufactured products will be eligible for duty-free access on the African continent. Why? Because of the concept of the rule of origin. Because of the concept of the rule of origin. Because of the concept of the rule of origin. To comply with rule of origin, your product as an exporter has to be wholly produced, in which 60% of the raw material is sourced from the African continent, substantially processed, in which there is a change in the tariff heading, value addition, in which there is a level of value add more than that increase the CIF of the product or CFR price of the product by at least 30%. By at least 30%. This means manufacturers will need to look at their production process right now and do the required reworking of their supply chain in order to be able to benefit under AfCFTA. Any manufacturer in Nigeria that is importing raw material from outside Africa might not be able to enjoy the benefit presented by the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. The reworking of the supply chain might require the need to source for raw material from African continent or to fund the production of that raw material on the African continent. This might involve forming necessary alliance and setting up an entity in another country where the raw materials can be obtained in order to ensure efficient and cost-effective sourcing of the raw material. So for a business, and like an exporter take advantage of AfCFTA in terms of export of goods, examine the market, investigate the market to know the packaging and labeling requirement, make necessary adjustments in product quality packaging, ascertain the language requirement for product labeling, make necessary amendments where required, and investigate and do necessary registration where required with the local authority. Propensities. What are the tendencies? What are the implications? What are the long-term effects, short-term effects, and implications on different sectors of the economy? Import of Africa are mainly manufactured products, and that should be the focus of Nigeria. AfCFTA provides Nigeria with the opportunity to realize their economic growth and diversification aspiration based on African market. In the short term, it is expected that the implementation of AfCFTA may lead to a decline in government revenue, a decline in GDP and government savings, Can you hear me now? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
we can hear you, but the line broke for some few minutes.
All right.
Maybe 3 seconds.
Yeah. So a decline in government revenue, and I think that's very obvious. I mean, decline in government revenue because obviously we are going to lose duty payment on some product, and that will also decline in government savings and expense, and of course, the GDP. Decline in balance of payment, balance of trade with Africa, as import will grow faster than export because Nigeria is a market. But this is will partially be offset by rising price of export due to rising demand from Nigeria, from export from Nigeria. There will be a decline in consumer price due to increased imports, which should lower inflation. Significant increase in imports, and this is expected to be significant across most manufacturing subsectors, particularly those products that will be declined over time in terms of negotiated over a period of 10 years, 10% reduction in tariff over a period of 10 years. Then, which sector should we be looking at to finance as a bank? It's expected there will be more investment and growth, and hence employment in the pulp, paper, printing, and publishing sector, according to MAN report, basic metal, iron, and steel, non-metallic textile, non-metallic products, textile, apparel, and footwear. Is expected that there will be growth. There will be growth, including textile, apparel, footwear, chemical, and pharmaceuticals. On the other hand, these are the sectors that you might need to tread carefully within because of AfCFTA, wood and wood products, electrical and electronic motor vehicle assembly, food, beverages, and tobacco, rubber, plastic products. In the long run, here are the benefits of AfCFTA. Agreed, both import and export is expected to rise because Africa will become more industrialized and we might begin to ship a lot of raw materials among ourselves. Manufactured good export will also rise due to higher investment. We're expecting that a lot of people who already have market in Africa will not want to lose their market because of AfCFTA. So it is anticipated that they will come in to come and take position under AfCFTA. They will come in to come and take position under AfCFTA because they can't afford to lose their market. They will create more, they will bring in more investment into different sectors in Africa. So we expect more investment in the manufacturing sector because those companies are likely going to have to come in and do the business themselves. Interest rate will likely rise due to demand for credit to satisfy export market, but will modulate in the long term as foreign investment increase in response to rise in the rate. The exchange rate will be pressured in the short term as import will grow faster than export, but in the long term, it will appreciate as demand stabilizes and export overtake import. Export is expected to overtake import. Export is expected to overtake import. Increase in production and services, capacity and trade within and outside of Africa will also create jobs for both low and highly skilled workers on the continent, but both low and highly skilled workers. Ease of movement. A number of African countries are already doing this. Ease of movement. Because if we are going to do this trade very well, we must be able to move freely among ourselves. So we expect some ease of movement with little demand for visa within the African continent. So what are the problems? Of course, there are challenges. But what I've said severally is that in spite of the challenges, it doesn't eliminate the opportunity and advantage we have under AfCFTA, in spite of the challenges. What are the problems? You know, people talk about competitiveness, which is true. So if you check the competitiveness index, Nigeria is number 14 or 15 in Africa. So that means Nigeria is above more than 40 countries. So if you think Nigeria is having an issue right now, you realize that in spite of the issues, you know, the more I go through the other African country under AfCFTA, the more I realize that we have our challenges, no doubt, but sincerely, we also have a lot of opportunity better than many other African countries in spite of our issues. So, in as much as we can't stop putting pressure on government to fix those infrastructure, we should also not lose sight of the opportunity we still have to take advantage of AfCFTA to grow the bank business. If you look at the top economy in Africa, Nigeria is least among them. From Nigeria, Algeria, South Africa, Morocco, Egypt, Nigeria is the least in terms of competitiveness. But in Africa, Nigeria is the fourth in West Africa, fourth, better than many other African countries, in spite of our challenges. In spite of our challenges. Basically letting us understand that we might have challenges, but there are sectors that can afford. There are sectors. What are the sizes and clout of those countries? No. Of course, there's a number of, look at them. Cote d'Ivoire, Tanzania, Zambia, Eswatini, Cameroon, Guinea, Gambia, Benin, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Burkina Faso, Malawi, Mali, Lesotho, all these countries under, and the one that are not on this list are the one below Nigeria on the competitiveness index. Of course, Nigeria is big. What I'm trying to say is that, okay, Nigeria is biggest or largest country in West Africa and in Africa, actually. Largest economy. So I think there is an advantage that their population is giving us that is making us to still be able to do not so bad compared to other African countries when it comes to productivity. We are not doing well, but if we compare ourselves with African countries, we have an advantage under AfCFTA. Of course, corruption, Nigeria is still least among the top economy in Africa. Even in inflation, can you imagine? Now it's much more than this, I think about 17 now. Morocco, ease of doing business, top. Nigeria is number 4 among the top economy. So how then do we prepare as we begin to wrap up? How do you prepare as a bank? We have manufacturers that are our customers. We have the advantage of the fact that we deal with this manufacturer in large volume. These manufacturers need to begin to consider AfCFTA. And one of the things we need to begin to do is to support these customers in different areas beyond financing. And I'll mention some of them very soon. Here are the areas I think there is need for a lot of work on the part of the bank. Communication, capacity, collaboration, commitment, cooperation, and coordination. You know, I did a research 2 years ago. It was my MSc research, and it was on trade within West Africa. And I was checking, why is it that in 30 years, Nigeria and even other African countries, West African countries, have not taken advantage of this opportunity for growth? And I discovered that ETLS, even though it's 30 years, could not deliver value to African country, West African country, because of communication issues, communication of information around programs, what is AfCFTA about, which is what we are doing right now, product, what can I trade under it, profit, how profitable is this, promotion, how do I promote my business, purchasers, how do I get buyers, paperwork, what are documentation required, payment, how do I get paid, policy, what are the government policy and procedure, and the people, who are we to talk to? The banks must be aware, the bank staff must be aware, and the bank must communicate this to its customer. The bank must be aware, the bank staff must be aware, and the bank must communicate it to its customer. To help the bank staff, There must be capacity building around product, pricing, paperwork, purchaser, and payment. Product, pricing, purchaser, paperwork, and payment. There must be capacity building. You know, I was talking about the demand of exporter right now. We call it the emerging export business support services as a strategy for export growth. If we don't render these support services to our customers, we will not be able to grow that business. The customer are asking questions around beyond financing. What else can you do for me? These 5 P's of export business challenges is area of concern: product issues, pricing issues, paperwork issues, purchasers issues, payment issues. Capacity building around this area will help the bank. Collaboration: NEXIM, NACIMA, AfCFTA, NAC, NEPC, NISAL, AfDB, and AfCFT. The bank needs collaboration with this agency, these banks, and the government itself in order to prepare adequately for AfCFTA. Cooperation among the unit of the bank. You know, I still cannot get my head, I can't wrap my head around it. Why a unit of a bank will be sabotaging other units? Sometimes I can't just get it. You are supposed to be working toward the same goal, but you don't want others to shine. You are sabotaging their effort. There must be cooperation among units, from the business development team to export desk to credit risk management. I realize most of the time when we do export training for different banks, the credit management does not show up. They don't bring them. But when there are issues, when they need to finance, these are the people that will bounce the transaction. And the reason they bounce is because they can't see clearly. There is not enough information to ask the right question to see clearly. And you cannot finance what you don't understand, else you lose money. You cannot finance what you don't understand, else you lose money. And because you cannot finance what you don't understand, what do? In order to mitigate the risk, you bounce it. In the 4 pillars of trade finance, I realized that banks typically will easily ensure the first pillar, payment facilitation. Bank does not joke with it. Trade risk mitigation, bank does not joke with it. Trade finance option or product, bank does not joke with it. But there is one in the 4th pillar that many banks fail to always uphold, and that is information flow, monitoring. There are principles involved in export finance monitoring. If you don't have a good understanding of the pillar of trade finance, you're going to have issues in being able, because you can't monitor what you don't understand. And that creates the reason why a number of banks shy away from financing export. But we must do it now. And there must be commitment on the part of the bank. Commitment to finance strategic product for AfCFTA. Well-equipped export desk, a unit market-facing that basically support the marketer on growing the trade or trade desk, but not the operation. I'm talking about a unit that is market-facing. AfCFTA, an export champion in branches. You don't have many branches, so this can reside in the head office. And maybe the possibility of having NSP count as KPI, which I believe will drive a lot of desire to fund, to support or to grow export. Look at this. The bank must be clear on what it wants to achieve under AfCFTA. There must be a vision. Where are we going? Then broken down into objectives. Divide different objectives, different sectors. What are we doing in manufacturing? What are we doing in food processing? What are different objectives? And based on objective, we can couch our strategy for each of the subsector and objectives. our planning then for AfCFTA should be based on our strategy. And our daily activity should be based on our plan. So my daily activity is based on my plan, and the plan is based on the strategy, and the strategy is based on the objective, and the objective summation helps me to achieve my goal or vision as a bank. You know, on the continent, it's also important that I see a shift in career. For you as a banker, marketer, if there is one area you want to develop your skill, to position yourself, to add a lot of value to your bank in the future, I think it's trade. The career ahead is trade related. Because trade is going to grow in Africa, and we need bankers to structure and finance those transactions. So here is a new opportunity to create more risk asset, to be able to get a lot of customers to do business with the bank. But it has to be based on skill. You know, whenever you are faced with a challenge and you are trying to solve it and you can't find solution, it's because the database of the mind is shallow. When you think, you query your database. If the database is shallow, the quality of thought will be poor. If the database is deep, by way of learning, because when you read, you expand your brain. You fire your neurons. You engage more neurons. You increase the capacity of the brain to think, and that makes it easier to solve problems. And remember, when you solve problems, you create value. When you create value for the customer, you attract the income and deposit. But you must start by learning, because with learning, you acquire skill. With skill, you develop competence. With competence, you solve problems. Because with competence, as a result of skill and knowledge, you have enough raw materials for thinking. Information, knowledge is raw material for thinking. So this career, you need to consider something in trade to strengthen your skill in trade. So what's the benefit to the bank? So who are we supposed to be following up now, marketing now? Number one, I should be marketing importer of Forex. Sorry, importers looking for Forex. Companies looking to diversify income into diversify the income of their business, so that they don't focus on one and reduce the risk in that sector to other sector. Manufacturer looking for export market to grow their volume. Exporters looking abroad in African countries. Intending exporters looking for market for their product, and state government looking to get market for their SMEs. Of course, the deposit sources or the deposit benefit include the fund for raw material production, the fund for clearing and forwarding, and the export proceeds you get as a result of the increase of liquidity, FX liquidity. Income from float income of deposit, interest income from NSP charges, account maintenance charge. So what are the benefits to an exporter? Because that will help you to also calculate your thought. What are the benefits to an exporter? Number one, duty-free access to the market on the African continent. Duty-free access to the market on the African continent. Utilization of idle or excess capacity of the company, boosting its profit. Developing immunity against recession in the domestic economy. Growing your market share abroad despite recession in the local economy. In this case, other African countries. Generation of foreign exchange to fund import raw material. Reduction of non-tariff barriers. Leading to low cost of trading on the continent. Overall increase in turnover and profitability of the business. Potential benefit of AfCFTA to an import customer. Importer can now import duty-free from African countries. They have access to cheap source of FX. for importer of raw material who export their product to African countries under AfCFTA. They don't need, they can reduce their cost by reworking their supply chain and doing some backward integration in sourcing their raw materials. Reduction in the cash conversion cycle because of short transit time on the continent. Importing at a cheaper rate because now he has a competitive exchange rate since he's importing himself. Increased competitiveness because of the low cost of importation on the continent. As I close, let me talk about some of the programs that will be of interest to you. Remember, I talked about career, and that the career can be strengthened and well positioned to take advantage of the opportunity of AfCFTA if you consider doing some certification program from the American Institute of Extended Studies. We are a center for them in Nigeria. The exam is done online. The classes are held online. So from the comfort of your home, from the comfort of your home, we have corporate training program, implant, and then certification program for individuals. For corporate, AfCFTA maximization strategic planning framework for bankers, leveraging on AfCFTA to grow export proceeds, AfCFTA maximizing the potential of African market, AfCFTA exploring exportable product, and then on the emerging support services, imported from African country under AfCFTA. Other training programs include marketing, managing, and multiply export trade customers, structuring and selling export finance products and services, managing, monitoring export business financing, fundamental principle of financing agri and minerals, then handling the emerging support services for exporters. Handling the emerging support services for exporters. This is the flyer on the seminar I told you about this every Thursday evening. I'm dropping the link again. The link has been dropped. We are doing Côte d'Ivoire today, maximizing potential of African market under AfCFTA. If you click on that link, you join the Telegram channel, you get to see the previous videos and the link for the program holding today by 5 p.m. We have been exploring different African countries. Like I said, we started from Angola, Algeria, and we are going to Zimbabwe. We are exploring about 52 African countries. We started in December, and we hope to round up around November this year. Here is the Executive Diploma in Export Business Management and Executive Diploma in Export Trade Finance from the American Institute of Extended Studies. It helps you to acquire skill and competence to take advantage of the African market under AfCFTA. I strongly believe bankers need the skill to be able to deliver the right support services, structure the right training, structure the right financing program, but more importantly, help the customer to grow their business. Answering those questions around product pricing, purchaser paperwork, and payment. So we have the Diploma in Export Business Management from the Americans of Extended Study. We are a center in Nigeria, organize the training, handle the tutorial, and you can pay the school directly using Form A. Or you pay Naira to us and then we'll remit to the school. Executive Diploma in Export Trade Finance. Executive Diploma in Export Trade Finance. Certified specialist in trade finance, and for those that have been in banker and you want to brush up your trade skill, you can consider certified intermediate trade professional because of the fact that you're new and you have not done certification before in trade. Certified intermediate professional will be most appropriate. We are offering 50% discount for those that will be registering in the month of April. That's the class starting in the month of April. As I conclude this presentation, I would like to say to everyone that if you want to diversify our economy, if you want to grow our GDP, if you want to create more trade in Africa, If you want to create employment, if you want to boost our foreign reserve, if you want to increase wealth and reduce poverty on the continent, aggressive drive for interregional trade is the way to go. Thank you very much. Let's take some question and comment. All right, can you hear me, please?
We can hear you.
Question, comment before we close. Okay, let me check the chat. I can see. Okay,
okay,
sorry,
Mr. Dele. Will the slide be made available to us?
I'll send it to Anu, yes.
Okay.
Question, comment. You can raise up your hand if you have a question or comment.